My name is Claire Baker. I'm 35, and until recently, I thought I had my life figured out. A quiet apartment in Seattle, soft amber light spilling across the living room in the evenings, the hum of my laptop as I worked late into the night. I'm a marketing consultant, organized, meticulous, someone who thrives on routine, and I liked it that way. Then there was Stephen Garcia, 36, magnetic, confident, the kind of man who walked into a room and instantly commanded attention. I loved him, or at least I thought I did, but 3 weeks ago, everything shifted. It started that Thursday evening. Stephen sat me down after dinner, his expression tight, serious, like he was about to deliver some terrible news. "We need to talk about your friends," he said. I knew this was coming. Over the past year, he'd dropped subtle hints, little comments that brushed against my life like a shadow. "Do you really need to see all of them every weekend?" Or, "I just don't get why you spend so much energy on people who don't really matter." But that night, he didn't hold back. "Claire, they're holding you back. Every single one of them. Jake still lives at home. Sophie's career isn't going anywhere. And Ethan, don't get me started. He's just playing music at cafes, hoping someone notices. You deserve more than this." I stayed quiet, letting him talk. He continued, "You're 35. You have a career, a life you could build. They're dragging you down. I can't keep pretending their lives are worth this much of your time. Choose, Claire. It's them or me." The room felt like it had shrunk. My friends, my family, people who had been with me through every heartbreak, every laugh, every late-night emergency, they were suddenly the villains in Stephen's story. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But mostly I wanted him to understand that these people weren't just acquaintances. They were my lifeline. They had shaped me. There was Madeline Harper, Stephen's ex-girlfriend, who had been a close friend of mine for years before I even met Stephen. We had a bond built on trust, quiet support, and endless laughter. She was smart, compassionate, and unwaveringly honest. Over time, our friendship had deepened, though nothing inappropriate had ever occurred. Just a shared understanding of each other's lives, the kind of bond that felt like home. I remembered the barbecue we always had at Dominic's parents' house. 11 years running, the same group, the same rituals. Madeline, Jake, Sophie, Ethan, they were my people. And now Stephen wanted me to turn my back on all of them. I thought about the small gestures that meant everything. Jake helping me move after my last breakup, Sophie giving up her Saturday mornings to help me renovate my apartment, Ethan talking me off the ledge when Stephen and I had our first real fight. These weren't failures. These were acts of love, loyalty, and humanity. And yet, Stephen's ultimatum hung over me like a storm cloud, heavy and impossible to ignore. Choose me or them. Choose me or everything you've ever believed in. I didn't answer him right away. Instead, I let the silence stretch, long enough for him to think he had won. His eyes searched mine for surrender. But my mind wandered to Madeline. I thought about the way she always had my back, the way her laugh could cut through my anxiety, and the years of trust that had been forged in the quiet moments, the small, imperceptible acts of friendship. That connection, real, tangible, unshakable, was my anchor. Stephen's voice broke through my thoughts. "So, what is it? Your friends or me?" I took a deep breath. I need to think. The weight of that decision pressed down on me. I wanted to be fair. I wanted to love Stephen and honor my friendships. But I knew one thing. No one, no ultimatum, no demand could make me betray the people who had been my constant. That weekend, I started making plans. Not the kind Stephen would like. I reached out to Jake, Sophie, and Ethan. I bought a small, meaningful token for each of them, a symbol of our enduring bond. And I thought about Madeline, quietly rooting for me, not even knowing how pivotal she would become in the storm that was coming. At the barbecue, I watched my friends laugh, tease, and care for each other. Stephen wasn't there. He had his wine tasting with colleagues, an excuse I could have accepted. But in his absence, I felt a kind of freedom I hadn't realized I was missing. I stood in the backyard, surrounded by the people who had never once asked me to choose between love and loyalty, and I made a silent vow. No one would ever make me turn my back on my family of choice. That night, as the last of the guests trickled out and the lights dimmed, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. The storm with Stephen hadn't even begun, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was ready to face it, not by bending to someone else's demands, but by standing firm in who I truly was. And I knew, deep down, that whatever came next, my choices would ripple in ways I couldn't yet see. My friendships, my loyalty, my heart, they weren't negotiable. Not for Stephen, not for anyone. The morning after the barbecue, I woke to the quiet hum of Seattle traffic outside my window, the city stretching itself awake. My apartment felt different, lighter somehow, because I had made my decision. I wasn't going to compromise my friendships for Stephen, no matter how persuasive, charming, or infuriating he could be. I spent the day preparing for what I secretly called my statement of loyalty. It wasn't a public declaration like a wedding proposal, but it carried the same weight in my heart, an act to show my friends that I valued them above all. I wrote little notes, tucked into small gifts, inside jokes, memories, mementos from years we'd shared. The kind of things that make ordinary moments eternal. As I worked, my phone buzzed with a message from Stephen. "Hey, Claire, can we talk tonight? I feel like things are slipping." I ignored it. I knew the conversation that awaited us would be stormy. He wanted control, and I was refusing to give it. But I also knew that confronting him head-on without a plan would only feed the chaos he thrived on. Instead, I spent the afternoon with Madeline. She had stopped by under the guise of returning a book, but we ended up talking for hours in my kitchen, the sun slanting across the countertops. "Claire, you seem different," she said finally, handing me a cup of tea. "I mean, calmer, lighter." I smiled, even though the tension in my chest refused to dissipate. "I think I finally realized something. I've been bending for so long, trying to make everyone happy, including Stephen, but I don't have to, not anymore." Madeline nodded knowingly. She didn't judge. She didn't tell me what to do. She just listened. And that quiet support was more powerful than any speech Stephen had ever given. We reminisced about old times, the moments that made our friendship unbreakable. And in those stories, I found courage. I remembered how Madeline had once saved me from making a catastrophic career move, how Jake had stayed up all night helping me when my old apartment flooded, how Ethan had driven hours just to drop off a care package when I was sick. These weren't just acts of kindness. They were proof of loyalty, the kind that Stephen could never manufacture. The evening arrived, and with it, inevitable confrontation. Stephen's car pulled up outside my building, its polished black exterior gleaming under the streetlight. I could feel my pulse quicken, but I steeled myself. This wasn't about fear anymore. It was about standing my ground. He knocked once, then twice. I opened the door, keeping my expression neutral. "Claire, we need to talk," he said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. His eyes searched mine, expectant, as if I would suddenly relent. "I think we already did," I said evenly. "You gave me your ultimatum. I've made my choice." His face darkened. "You can't just... These people are dragging you down. I've tried to show you." I shook my head, a small, cold smile tugging at my lips. "You don't get to decide that. They're my friends. They've shaped me. They've supported me when you were too busy lecturing me to even notice." His jaw tightened. "So it's them or me?" I stepped back, letting my words land like stones in a pond. "It's them. I'm not turning my back on people who have never asked me to choose between them and anyone else. Not now, not ever." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated, but there was no anger, not really, just disbelief, the kind that comes when someone realizes they've lost control. "You're lucky I'm with you," he muttered finally, the words laced with venom. "Most people would bend, Claire. Most people would choose me." I didn't flinch. I let the silence answer him. I had already chosen. That night, I didn't sleep. I thought about the barbecue, about the laughter, the food, the way my friends had rallied around each other without even realizing how strong that bond was. I thought about Madeline, her quiet presence in my life, her unwavering support. I knew there would be more challenges ahead. Stephen wasn't going to let this slide, but for the first time in weeks, I felt grounded. I made a list of all the potential fallout. Social media rumors, manipulative texts, maybe even office gossip. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I had allies, people who had proven over years that they would never let me face chaos alone. And deep down, I knew something else. The choices we make reveal who we truly are. Stephen had revealed himself, and I had revealed myself too, stronger, braver, unafraid to stand up for what mattered. By morning, I had a plan. Not a grandiose public spectacle, but a deliberate, thoughtful act that would solidify my loyalty to the people who had always been there. The barbecue was over, but the story wasn't. This was only the beginning of a storm I was determined to navigate on my own terms, surrounded by those who truly mattered. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I could feel the tension building. Small tremors that hinted at the chaos yet to come, at Stephen's unwillingness to accept my choices, and at the way loyalty and love would collide in ways I couldn't yet imagine. The next few days were a strange mixture of relief and creeping tension. Claire Baker, me, had made my choice, but Stephen wasn't going to let it go quietly. I was at my office, a mid-sized marketing firm with a casual environment, when the first ripple hit. An email notification blinked on my screen. A colleague asking if I'd been okay, mentioning some bizarre rumors floating around social media. I frowned. My pulse quickened. I knew immediately where this was coming from. Stephen. It started small. A friend sent me screenshots of a message that looked like it came from me, sent to Stephen, implying that I was belittling our mutual friends. The fonts didn't match. The timestamps made no sense. I almost laughed at how amateurish it was, if it weren't so infuriating. Then came the calls. Stephen had apparently decided that everyone needed to know the truth. Office, friends, family, even strangers on social media were pulled into his campaign. Madeline called to warn me, her voice calm but firm. Claire, ignore it. It's him. He's trying to provoke a reaction. Don't engage. Document everything just in case. I spent hours that day screenshotting, recording, and organizing every instance of harassment. Emails, fake messages, social media screenshots, they all formed a trail of manipulation. By Tuesday, it escalated. Stephen's interference reached the point of harassment at multiple locations: my apartment, my workplace, even minor vandalism. One morning, I found my car keyed, deep scratches along the driver's side, the word loser scrawled. The neighbor's security camera caught a figure in a hoodie, though the face was obscured. It wasn't just physical harassment. Stephen went digital, impersonating me, sending emails and messages that could ruin my professional reputation. Every attempt was sloppy, but deliberate. Every attempt revealed the obsessive pattern of control and entitlement that I'd only begun to notice. I leaned on Madeline and my friends. They came together, quietly coordinating support, letting me know I wasn't alone. Jake offered to be present anytime Stephen showed up uninvited. Sophie helped me secure legal guidance, putting together documentation of all the incidents. Ethan was relentless in moral support, a constant reminder that loyalty wasn't just a word, it was action. Stephen's manipulations began affecting my coworkers. One day, Jerome, my manager, called me in with an apologetic smile. "Try not to laugh, Claire," he said, "but your boyfriend, or ex, or whoever, called to say you're having a mental breakdown." I laughed, more out of disbelief than humor. The absurdity of it all was staggering, but the stress was real. I filed reports with the police about identity theft, vandalism, and harassment. Every report painted a clear picture. Stephen wasn't just upset. He was attempting to control, intimidate, and isolate me. Through it all, Madeline remained a constant. She didn't try to intervene with words. She just was. She accompanied me to the police station, reviewed documents, and offered strategic advice. Her presence was grounding. For a moment, when I felt like the world was closing in, I could breathe again. And the storm wasn't just professional. Friends began receiving fake messages, screenshots claiming that I had been unfaithful, that I had schemed behind Stephen's back with Madeline. The forgeries were laughably bad. Fonts wrong, dates wrong, but the effect was still chilling. One night, I sat in my apartment, walls closing in, thinking of the last 11 years of barbecues, birthday parties, late-night support sessions. How could someone so close to me try to dismantle that foundation? And yet, amidst the fear and fury, a strange clarity emerged. I had chosen correctly. Loyalty, friendship, truth, they were mine to protect. Madeline, as always, reminded me of that. "You didn't start this, Claire. You're not the villain here. Document, defend, survive. The truth will catch up." And I believed her. But I also knew this was only the beginning. Stephen's obsession wasn't just about me. It was about control, about proving that I could bend, that I would bend, and I wouldn't. By Wednesday, I had a clear plan. Continue documenting, involve law enforcement, protect my friends, and refuse any engagement with his manipulations. But even with the plan, I couldn't shake a deep, gnawing sense of anticipation. The storm was far from over, and when it hit its peak, it would be explosive. I felt a surge of resolve. I wasn't just defending myself, I was defending years of history, friendships that had survived everything, and my right to live my life on my own terms. And when the confrontation finally came, I knew I would be ready. Thursday evening arrived with a strange mix of tension and inevitability. I knew Stephen wouldn't stop on his own. His attempts to manipulate, harass, and control had escalated too far. Every call, every fake message, every rumor he'd started felt like a ticking time bomb. And I had learned one thing. When someone like that decides to escalate, confrontation is inevitable. I wasn't facing him alone. Madeline, Jake, Sophie, and Ethan had made it clear. They would be there for me every step of the way. Not out of fear for me, but out of loyalty to the life and love we had built together over the years. It was time to reclaim my story. The confrontation happened at a small dinner gathering we'd organized with close friends, ostensibly casual, but I had chosen the location and time carefully. Friends who knew everything, friends who could witness the truth. Stephen arrived, unannounced. He walked in with a smug confidence, unaware that the night was carefully orchestrated. My pulse spiked, but I held my ground. "Claire, we need to talk," he said, as though he owned the right to start this conversation. "No," I said firmly, stepping in front of him. "We don't need to talk. Not tonight, not like this. You've made your intentions clear. I've made mine." He laughed, a sound meant to intimidate. "You really think you can just stand up to me like this?" "Yes," I replied, my voice calm, though my heart raced. "I can, I will, and everyone here will witness the truth, not your version, my reality." I turned to my friends. Each one understood their role without me saying a word. Witness, support, reality check. Madeline stepped forward, her calm authority cutting through the tension. "Stephen, this has gone far enough. Your attempts to manipulate, intimidate, and harass Claire and everyone close to her stops now. You've crossed the line." The room went quiet. Stephen's face contorted between disbelief and rage. He sputtered, trying to regain control, but the dam had broken. Sophie handed over a folder, documentation of every fake message, every harassing email, every social media post. Jake and Ethan backed her up with testimony of the past week's events, while Madeline stood beside me, calm and unwavering. "You've been trying to destroy friendships, reputations, even careers to prove a point," Madeline said. "Do you really think that makes you right?" Stephen opened his mouth, but I stopped him. "You've revealed who you are, Stephen. Control, obsession, manipulation. That's your truth. And now everyone here sees it. I won't be gaslighted, bullied, or coerced. Not by you, not by anyone." For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the city outside. And then, as if the universe had shifted, Stephen realized he had lost. Not in a fight, not in a debate, but in the undeniable truth of loyalty, love, and integrity. He left that night, storming out with a mix of rage and disbelief, while my friends rallied around me. Relief washed over me, but it was tempered with awareness. The aftermath was only beginning. Stephen's actions had consequences that extended beyond this confrontation. I leaned back, exhausted but unbroken. Madeline handed me a cup of tea. "You did it, Claire. You stood up. You didn't let him rewrite your life. And you weren't alone. That matters more than you realize." I nodded, letting the weight of the night sink in. The confrontation wasn't about revenge. It was about truth, accountability, and reclaiming control of my life. And now, as I looked around at my friends, their smiles, their quiet pride, I knew the most important lesson had been learned. Loyalty, honesty, and love always outweigh manipulation and fear. Yet even in this victory, I knew the ripple effects would continue. Stephen wasn't finished. The legal steps, the social repercussions, the careful navigation of truth versus rumor, all of it lay ahead. But for the first time in weeks, I felt powerful, not because I had dominance over him, but because I had never lost control of myself. And somewhere deep in my chest, a quiet sense of hope began to bloom, a hope that the storm had passed, that the friendships I valued most were intact, and that I had emerged stronger, wiser, and unafraid of standing firm in the face of chaos. The days after the confrontation were quieter, though the tension lingered like a stubborn shadow. Stephen's harassment had been halted for now, but the aftermath of his actions, vandalized property, fake messages, and the sheer audacity of his schemes, required careful management. I spent the next morning in my apartment, going through documents and police reports, confirming the legal steps we had initiated. Madeline stayed with me, calm and pragmatic, her presence a reminder that loyalty wasn't just a word, it was action. By midweek, the situation began to stabilize. Stephen's attempts to manipulate workplaces, social circles, and personal spaces were documented, and the authorities were involved. It became clear that his obsession had consequences, ones that he would face whether he liked it or not. But what mattered most to me wasn't legal victory, it was restoration. I wanted life to return to normal for my friends, for Madeline, for myself. We organized a small dinner at my apartment, inviting Jake, Sophie, Ethan, and Madeline. It wasn't extravagant, just a shared meal, laughter, and a sense of safety that had been missing for weeks. We recounted the absurdities of the past fortnight, the fake emails, the social media lies, Stephen's dramatic attempts to reclaim control. We laughed, not out of cruelty, but relief. The tension that had suffocated us was dissipating. During that dinner, I reflected on everything that had happened. I realized that Stephen's actions had exposed not only his flaws, but also the strength of the bonds I had often taken for granted. My friends had not just supported me, they had stood up for me, defended me, and reminded me of the life I had chosen, the people who truly mattered. Madeline, ever composed, raised her glass. To loyalty, and to not letting anyone make us choose between love and friendship, she said. The toast resonated deeply. It wasn't just a symbolic gesture, it was a declaration of our collective resilience. Stephen's isolation became inevitable. Word of his harassment and manipulation spread, and he faced consequences from legal, social, and professional angles. For once, the person who had sought to control the narrative found himself silenced by truth. Weeks later, life settled into a new rhythm. I resumed my work, spending evenings quietly in my apartment, now lighter, freer, more intentional. Madeline and I shared our routines, small confidences, and quiet victories. Jake, Sophie, and Ethan continued to be my family of choice, their loyalty proven beyond doubt. I allowed myself reflection, recognizing the growth that had come from the storm. I was stronger, more confident, and clearer about what and who truly mattered in my life. The choice I had made, though difficult, had revealed the reality of my relationships. I had chosen not just friends, but integrity, trust, and love in its truest forms. And as I sat one evening, watching the city lights flicker through my apartment window, I realized that Stephen's manipulations, though painful, had clarified my path. I didn't need to bend, compromise, or compromise my values. I had chosen my people, my family, my truth. In that quiet reflection, a sense of peace settled over me. The storm had passed. I had survived. And surrounded by friends who had proven themselves time and again, I finally felt the simple, profound joy of being exactly where I belonged.